she owed him 300 million. More precisely, she and her owed him 300 million. Leo had run off, so the debt landed squarely on her shoulders. "Consider me the kind of man who takes advantage of a crisis," he'd said. "You once promised to be my girlfriend. Now I'm pushing my luck, let's get hitched. Only after you've paid it all back are you free to walk away." After the City Hall papers were signed, Casey wiped every IOU clean in his new role as her husband. He declared, "When it comes to debt collectors, one of me is more than enough." Casey strode into the private dining room just as Quinn stood before a phalanx of executives, tilting a bottle of Matai straight down her throat. The executives hooped, each exhaling clouds from freshly lit cigarettes. A vein at Casey's temple twitched. He watched the alcohol bloom red across her pale skin, her brows nodding, and it was all he could do not to haul the reckless little fool over his knee. One full bottle, 3 million deal closed, worth it. He met Casey's gaze, smiled, and brushed a thumb across her lower lip. Smoke thickened, her lungs began to race. Knowing an attack was coming, she staggered toward the restroom before she humiliated herself in front of the room. He slammed both palms on the marble counter, gulping for air. Her heart hammered, sweat slicked her skin, pins and needles shot through her limbs, vision tunneling. She could hold her liquor. It wasn't the Baijiu doing this, it was the second-hand fumes from the executive cigarettes. Severe hyperventilation, triggered by even a whiff of smoke. Suddenly a man's hand clamped over her mouth and nose. Through the gaps between his fingers she instinctively slowed her breathing. Tobacco scent curled from his skin, yet instead of disgust she felt a strange comfort. Casey chain-smoked, but he never lit up around her. Her chest rose and fell, steadying. In the mirror she saw him, brows sharp, eyes colder, fury carved across a face too handsome for its own good. He ground out, "You're a brilliant architect, so why torch yourself? I've told you 1,000 times the building collapse wasn't your fault. Your blueprints were flawless. You should be designing, not babysitting a bunch of bloated blowhards. I just don't want to draw anymore." No spark. He froze, fingers brushing the outline of his left thigh. He'd hoped guilt would tether her to him, but he'd never meant to clip her wings. Once, she'd said her dream was to plant a signature skyline across Riverdale. When she spoke, starlight glittered in her eyes. After the accident she shelved her pencils, never touched a blueprint again. Once her breathing leveled, she didn't shove his hand away, instead her tongue darted, mischievously tracing the crease of his palm. Electricity jolted through Casey. He bent and nipped the nape of her neck. His face flamed. She whispered, "Pretty sure this is the ladies' room." "Look again, this is the men's room." In their daily skirmishes she lost more often than she won. Flushing deeper, she punched his solid chest and spun to leave, but Casey seized her wrist and hauled her toward the exit. He marched so fast it betrayed the limp he usually hid. Each uneven stride drew pitying stares. Such a tall, gorgeous man, sadly broken. Pain knifed through her. 2 years ago Casey had lost a leg saving her. From the knee down, his left leg was gone, replaced by a prosthetic he'd learned to walk on through months of agony. She'd attended every rehab session, knew exactly how much steel will and pain stood between him and each normal-looking step as long as he didn't hurry. "We haven't said goodbye to corporate, leaving now is beyond rude." She grabbed the back of his hand, the plea to slow down catching in her throat. His leg was forbidden territory. If not for her, he'd still be whole. He shot her a scorching glare. He shrank, eyes flicking to the cuff of his trousers, wondering whether the prosthetic socket had shifted. That would explain the sweat on his brow, the bloodless lips. She fished a tissue and dabbed his forehead gently. His lashes quivered, dark depths brimming with things he never said. She stroked the back of his hand, her foolproof peace offering. Casey craved her touch, a caress usually soothed the beast. The trick had never failed. Gradually the anger ebbed from his face. "I already told your corporate the deal is dead." "What? Then I drank that poison for nothing?" She bristled, jerking free so hard he swayed off balance. Catching him, she hissed, "I kill myself landing clients so your law firm can profit, And you roast the bird after it's cooked. Do you have a damn death dash? She swallowed the final wish, remembering this creditor was pricklier than any corporate. Instantly she bottled her rage. The warmth in Casey's eyes iced over. He longed for her to rip into him without filter, yet through 2 years of sharing closets and coffee she kept a veil of deference that chafed him raw. You grind day and night just to zero the balance and divorce me? Divorce is off the table, but the spreadsheet still needs to hit zero. She owed him 300 million. She and her ex, Leo had skipped town, so she wore the debt like a lead coat. To keep her from bolting too, Casey demanded a marriage license first, stay shackled until every dime was returned. Their secret marriage was known only to a tight circle. To pay it off, Quinn accepted a position as business development manager at his law firm. In his mind, repayment equaled divorce, so whenever she closed a deal and the office group chat lit up, the boss scowled. She always pretended not to notice, secretly amused by his tantrums. Unwilling to quarrel, she looped her arm through his like a battle buddy. Deal's toast, so be it. My Chase is happy, that's all that matters. Let's go home. His lips parted, defeat shadowing his eyes. 2 years, and she still kept the gate locked. The more obedient she was, the more he itched to combust. 02 Quinn slumped against the seat as the liquor surged, whimpering softly. Casey told the chauffeur to lower the window. She smiled sweetly into the night wind. Suddenly, she felt violently nauseous and ordered the chauffeur to stop at once. She crouched on the curb, vomiting miserably, while Casey handed her water and tissues, cleaning up without a trace of disgust. When he finished, she revived as if nothing had happened. Under the boundless night, she kicked off her high heels, dragged Casey into the middle of the road, and started waltzing. Her bare feet rested on his shoes, and, half considerate, she asked, Chase, am I tiring you out? Casey was a little helpless. His deep, magnetic voice brushed her ear. You're drunk. I'm not drunk. She clasped his hands, grinned broadly, and declared, who made a rule against waltzing in the street? Casey, stop looking so stern. Cheer up. I love seeing you happy. When you smile, it lights up my whole world, you know? She hummed Chopin's Nocturne, giggled, and patted his waist. Casey had never heard such tender nonsense. Indulgently he matched her steps. Heaven and earth seemed to shrink until only the two of them remained. If he could, he would freeze time right there, so in a single moment they could grow old together. He stepped back, spread her arms, eyes sparkling, and gave him a huge bear hug. Casey froze, catching her as she slid downward. Soft snores drifted to his ears. She had fallen asleep against him. I'm happy with you beside me. Casey lowered his head and kissed her lips. When the chauffeur saw Casey limping as he carried Quinn, he moved to help, but Casey refused. He lay in his arms like a supple cat. She murmured something drowsily, he couldn't catch it. He bent his ear to her lips and asked gently, what? She called again, and he felt a winter wind pierce his heart. She was whispering wryly. He and Leo had been college classmates. After graduation they founded a firm together, and when Casey met her she had already been with Leo 6 years. Casey knew that, had Leo not been such a bastard, she would have married him for life. Those 6 years were flowing water he could never chase or erase. He sank into the memory of first meeting her. Back then Leo was still her boyfriend. Once in the parking garage, Casey saw Quinn accept flowers from Leo, smiling until her eyes curved, telling him, it's just a late work talk, Chase doesn't like me, so stop imagining things. Even if he did, I wouldn't like him. I already have you. How could there be anyone else? Casey pulled himself back. She hadn't liked him then. What about now? He had never once told him I love you. Never. A dull ache throbbed in his chest, he tightened his arms. Am I not even in your dreams? Can't you make room for me? Mia, I love you and only I keep saying those 3 words. I so badly want to hear them from you just once. 03 The next dawn Quinn woke to find Casey's prosthetic leg tossed on the living room floor, bloodstains still on it. Panic seized her. Casey? Are you home? what happened?" She shouted through the huge living room and finally found him on the upstairs glass-walled balcony. An empty red wine bottle lay on its side. He wore only a thin white shirt and had slept all night on the cold tiles. The left trouser leg was soaked in blood. She knelt, carefully rolling up the empty cuff. The stump beneath the prosthetic was rubbed raw and bloody. He felt fingers clawing at her throat. She shut her eyes, ordering herself to stay calm. She called the chauffeur and asked him to come and take Casey to the general hospital. Before hanging up, she asked what had happened the night before. The chauffeur answered, "Chase carried you the whole way, must be been 6 or 7 miles. No matter how I begged, he wouldn't get in the car." She hugged his icy body, warming him with her own, and scolded through tears, "What tantrum is this? You're breaking my heart, you know." His eyes reddened as she stared at his ruined leg. Guilt crashed over her. She grabbed his collar, then, seeing his bloodless face, let go in despair. He met Casey through an office tower project. At the time, she and Leo ran a small construction company. She designed, Leo built. Learning Casey was developing a tower in South, both were desperate to land the commission. Leo was sure a titan like Casey would never hire a startup, but Quinn refused to surrender. She stuffed thick blueprints into her backpack, marched to Casey's law firm, and was stopped dead by the receptionist, who wouldn't let her near him. He slid the drawings back into her pack and told the receptionist conspiratorially, "Truth is, I'm Casey's girlfriend, this firm's future." She patted the woman's shoulder authoritatively. "You did great, I'll put in a good word." The receptionist stared, stunned, and Quinn strode straight into the CEO's office. Casey had just hung up when the receptionist's girlfriend appeared. He stated her business. Casey didn't get angry. Maybe he'd never seen a designer fight so hard. Glancing at his watch, he gave her 10 minutes to pitch. When she talked design, starlight danced in her eyes. Chin in hand, he listened and soon was captivated. She wasn't a great beauty, yet her unique spark held his gaze. 10 minutes convinced him. He loved her concept and awarded her the tower. They met often after that, always to refine plans. Though untrained in architecture, Casey had ideas that sharpened her blueprints. Conversation flowed. Once, they talked past 10 p.m. Casey offered to drive her home. While packing up, she said, "No need, my boyfriend's picking me up." Agitated, Casey lit a cigarette. "That Leo, how long have you been together?" 6 years. We started dating freshman year." Not wanting to make him stub it out, she hurried her packing. Suddenly her blueprints fluttered to the floor. She gasped, face flushing scarlet. Recognizing hyperventilation, Casey crushed the cigarette. "Why didn't you tell me you hyperventilate?" He covered her mouth and nose. "Less CO2 loss, you'll feel better." Tall Casey stood behind her, one palm sealing her mouth and nose, the other arm circling her waist to steady her tingling body. He felt her lips press against his palm. The air seemed to grow hotter and thicker with every nervous breath. It was awkward, yet he was only trying to ease her pain. She pushed the embarrassment aside and focused on slowing her breathing. The suffocating pressure eased at once. Casey released her. When she turned, his face was perfectly calm, and she exhaled in relief. Then Leo arrived to pick her up. For some reason he insisted on kissing her in front of Casey. The display made her deeply uncomfortable. It felt unprofessional and downright rude to act that way in front of a client. She couldn't bring herself to check Casey's reaction, simply grabbed Leo and hurried off. After they left, Casey lifted his hand to his lips, closed his eyes, and inhaled greedily, her ragged breath against his chest replaying in his mind. He tugged his collar open, frustrated, a wild animal rattling the cage inside him. He wanted to possess her, but she already had the man she wanted. Casey fought the craving, lost and unsure what to do next. 4 days later he asked Casey to join her on a stone selection trip. They were sitting in the car when they spotted Leo leading another woman out of a motel. "Maxwell, if your girlfriend knew you were bringing women from the club, she'd dump you in a second." "She's just playing hard to get," Leo laughed. 6 years together and she still won't let me touch her. What's a normal guy supposed to do? I can't break up with her right now, though. Some big shot's got his eye on her, and he's handing me a multi-million-dollar project. Bragging to the woman, Leo lingered beside Casey's car, never noticing the man inside watching him with hawk-like eyes. Casey rubbed his forehead and shot Quinn a worried glance. Her eyes glistened, yet she smiled and said, "We're on the clock. Personal matters can wait until after hours, Chase. Let's go." Inside the car, Casey fought to keep a grin off his face. Leo had cheated, knowing Quinn, she would end things. And Leo hadn't even slept with her. How could he not feel elated? He did break up with Leo. She asked for none of the office tower profits, and Leo readily agreed to stay away on one condition: she continue posing as his girlfriend publicly until the tower project wrapped. The lovers became plain partners, and the arrangement felt surprisingly comfortable. Casey, unaware of the split, saw them working together as if nothing had happened and assumed he had forgiven the betrayal. How deep must her love run, he wondered, for a woman to stay with a cheating man? He seethed at how love had stripped her of pride, reducing her to dust when she deserved far better. She deserved him. Yet who was he to judge? He loved a woman who didn't love him back, reduced himself to dust by nothing stronger than jealousy. On the day the tower topped out, Casey, Quinn, and Leo attended the ribbon cutting together. He walked in thrilled, craning her neck as her blueprints turned to glass and steel before her eyes, proud as a parent watching a child grow up. Suddenly a glass panel dropped from the ceiling. While guests scattered in panic, several support beams shuddered. The brand new tower looked ready to cave in. Everyone bolted for the exits. He stared in disbelief at Leo's retreating back. The safety inspections had passed. The structure should have been sound. Why was this happening? A beam plunged toward her. Someone shoved her aside. "Casey." The pillar crushed his left leg. Pale-faced, he shouted, "Don't freeze, get out with the others." He knelt, trying to drag him free, but the beam was far too heavy, only a crane could lift it. His leg bones must be pulverized. The sharp stench of blood terrified her. She feared he might never stand again. More debris and glass rained down. She stretched over him, shielding his body with her own. When the last worker fled, only the two of them remained inside until the fire brigade arrived. "I'm sorry, Chase. I don't know what went wrong. I'm so sorry," she babbled. "It's not your fault. Your design was flawless," he whispered, brushing tears from her cheeks. "If I don't say it now, I never will. I love you. I can't name the moment it started, but seeing Leo kiss you nearly drove me insane. Believe me, I love you to the point of madness. I. Panic-stricken yet moved by the intimacy born of looming death, Quinn closed her eyes and kissed his cheek. "If we get out alive, I'll be your girlfriend." Casey pulled her tight, joyful. "Deal." The tower did not collapse. Casey was the sole casualty, losing his left leg. The cause: Leo's supplier had slipped in 30% substandard steel. Near completion, Leo discovered the scam but, eager for the final payout, bribed the safety inspector to hush it up. After the disaster, Leo fled with the company's funds, terrified of colossal damages and criminal charges, leaving Quinn the whole mess. She emptied her savings to pay the crews, then worked day and night at half-finished sites. With Leo gone and the capital chain snapped, every project ground to a halt, and more than a dozen suppliers went unpaid. Exhausted in body and soul, she heard Casey had asked for her after his amputation. Conflicted, she went to the general hospital. Outside his room, she told herself, "Whatever Chase wants, I'll give it." She pushed the door open. Wearing gold-rimmed glasses, Casey was studying a financial report. "Chase, I'll cover your losses," she said. He looked up. "Sterling, you've lost so much weight." He added softly, "It breaks my heart." And used to kindness after facing only snarling creditors, Quinn shifted uneasily and repeated, "Name the figure, Chase. I'll repay every dollar you lost." He had just come out of amputation surgery, lying in bed paper white, and in the most businesslike tone told finance to hand her the profit and loss, 300 million. she would have to compensate him for a $300 million loss. Economic damage can be added up on a finance spreadsheet, but how do you calculate the left leg he lost? Quinn, call it taking advantage of your helplessness if you like. Before, you promised to be my girlfriend. Now I want to push my luck. Let's get hitched at City Hall. Once you pay off the debt, you can leave me. She answered easily, fine. Since he claimed he loved her, she would spend her life repaying him. After they got hitched at City Hall, Casey repaid every cent owed on building materials in his new role as her husband. He declared, I'm the only creditor you need. 05 Quinn surfaced from the memory and looked down at the tremble of Casey's lashes. They were like butterfly wings. Slowly he opened his eyes, voice thick with congestion, no hospital. She knew he'd been terrified of hospitals ever since the amputation. Humoring him, Quinn booked a physician for the house. After the leg was dressed, fever flared again. She never left his side, and when he began sleeping too much she roused him, propped him against the pillows, and read him essays. You're an absolute pro at tormenting me. Casey rubbed her head in defeat. Fine, read away. She had grabbed the book from his private study at random, and Quinn soon found it dull. Casey listened listlessly, energy flagging. Closing the book, she touched his forehead. The fever's gone. Where does it still hurt? You look so drained. She gasped. Casey suddenly rolled her over, showering fierce kisses down her throat. Careful of your leg. His mouth swallowed her words, and inside his strong arms her heartbeat scattered. Her breath came faster and faster. Casey covered her mouth and nose to slow the hyperventilation. She pulled his hand away and finally asked, why did you torture yourself like that last night? In your dream you called for him. Who? Leo. At the name, his eyes filled with loathing. She tried to recall. I dreamed he came back, and I ran after him screaming for my money back. But you called him Riley. Old habit. Reading his expression, she caved at once. Leo, the bastard Leo. Understanding dawned, she sank her teeth into his shoulder blade. Never hurt yourself when you're upset again, got it? Casey chuckled quietly. Okay, whatever you say. Next time you get a spanking. Whose butt gets paddled? Mine. The answer slipped out. She coddled him so often it had become second nature. Satisfied, Casey kissed her again. After all that exertion he revived, and Quinn, now limp, he cradled her and read her the essays. She yawned, cheek pillowed on his chest. Passages she thought tedious sounded like painted landscapes in his voice. For the first time she felt a lifetime of everyday married warmth might not be bad at all. She nuzzled his chest and told herself, let it be, at the very least let this man be happy. She couldn't tell if she loved him. Leo had taught her never to trust love again, so with Casey she kept reminding herself to guard her heart. Maybe one day she could admit, without fear, that she loved him. Casey went to shower. Quinn opened her inbox. Seeing a message titled, He Lied to You, she felt a chill crawl up her spine. The anonymous email dragged the building collapse of 2 years back into the light. The supplier that pushed substandard steel was secretly controlled by Casey's own building materials company. Attached was a voice recording of Casey ordering the dealer to use the substandard steel. It was patchy, but you could still catch the timbre of his voice. Anger? Resentment? At what, at whom should she direct them? That incident had revealed a coward who deserted her the moment calamity struck. The most she lost was a company, but Casey lost a leg. The email claimed Casey's plan had been to ruin her and Leo's firm, then swoop in to rescue its finance crisis and win her step by step. The falling support beam was pure accident, an accident that never derailed his scheme but left him permanently maimed. She finished reading just as Leo phoned. He stepped onto the second-floor glass-walled balcony and cut straight to the chase. I've seen the email. What do you want? She had already guessed Leo was the sender. Mia, is that any way to talk to me? She gave a cold laugh. How should I address her who fled for his life and ran off with the cash, leaving me the bill? You're hoping I'll hate Casey, help you transfer his assets, maybe even cuckold him, right? 2 years beside Casey had sharpened her judgment. She was no longer blind. Leo was scum. Mia, you're a rich lady now, of course you won't hate him. But why should you two live in a mansion while I end up with nothing? Leo snarled. If I hand that recording to the media, Casey's reputation is finished. I only want money. Hearing footsteps in the hall, Quinn kept her face calm. I'll buy the recording, name a price. I'm hanging up, we'll meet next time. She ended the call, bent to check the strawberries she and Casey had planted, and brightened to find so many ripe ones. Moments later, Casey wrapped his arms around her from behind, scraping her cheek with newly grown stubble. She dodged with a cool face. Thought you'd vanish, turns out you're stealing strawberries, greedy little cat. He plucked one and popped it into her mouth. Sweet? She turned and studied him without blinking. She refused to believe he would tamper with building materials. Her Casey was a man of integrity. Something in that email had to be wrong. Frowning, not knowing why she was upset, he bent and kissed her hard, murmuring like a child, "Sweet, and you're sweeter than strawberries." His kiss swept over her. Quinn stroked the nape of his neck, then said suddenly, "Leo's back." Casey froze. He contacted you? What did he say? He pecked his lips, slipped from his arms, turned away, and said quietly, "I want to hear it from you." Casey was restless. He pulled out a cigarette on reflex and wedged it between his lips, then remembered she couldn't stand secondhand smoke. The cigarette stayed unlit, pinched in his anxious fingers. The moment Leo returned to Westmont, he'd gotten the news and learned the man had already commissioned a fake voice recording. Casey knew exactly what the scumbag was plotting, and the knowledge burned. Why did Leo keep haunting them like some unshakable ghost? And why did she still waste a single thought on the bastard? Her suspicion, sparked by Casey's reaction, left her no choice but to confront him. That shipment of substandard steel, was it under your orders? He rubbed his left leg and gave a bleak laugh. I did something rotten, and life already punished me for it. I lied to you. Now, are you going to leave me? For 2 years Casey's heart had dangled over an abyss. He needed to know how deep the tether between them truly ran. If I planned on walking out, why the hell did I just kiss you? Am I crazy? He spun around, saw the stunned delight on his face, and laughed through fresh tears. Leo and I broke up ages ago. The second he cheated, I was done. You could have just come after me. Why engineer all this drama? Do you have any idea that stunt could have killed somebody? You are so wicked, so twisted. Casey swallowed a grin, deliberately kept the whole truth to himself, and folded her into his arms. Scold me all you want, I don't regret it. Back then you didn't like me. No spark means no spark, no matter how hard I chased. But after the accident you pitied me, felt guilty, carried remorse. Pity can turn into love, and love is love. He had thought he was some unreachable alpine blossom, turned out he was a poison that corroded the gut. Yet even so, she still couldn't picture herself leaving him. Damn it, Chase really wasn't a good man at heart. Nice guys finish last, sweetheart. I'm plenty bad, so do you love me or not? You, absolute lunatic. He grabbed the broom beside her and swung it straight at him. Casey's leg made dodging impossible, so he took the beating with a pitiful look, though she didn't have the heart to hit hard, only tapping his backside a few playful times with the bristles. 06 Leo lacked the patience to wait for him to reach out and texted her directly, demanding they meet. He waited in a barbecue joint, expecting Quinn. Instead Casey walked in. Casey sat, unhurried, and drank a glass of water. Leo cracked first. I spotted your little crush on Eamon back then. She's just a woman. Look at your money, you could have anyone. Was it worth ending up short a limb? Cut the crap. Name your price. Leo froze, guilt flickering across his face. It's not about money. Oh, then it's complicated. You came to see my wife looking to rekindle the flame? Casey narrowed his eyes, voice deceptively pleasant. Honesty's wise when you're begging Mia for cash I control. Asking me directly is far more efficient. His gaze hardened. You forged that recording for money, didn't you? How did you dash your second startup tanked? You're drowning in debt. You're desperate, thought you'd con me, and I'm willing to pay to keep you away from her before I lose patience, state the figure. $5 million. Leo stammered. Wire it and I'll vanish from Amin dash, seeing Casey's arctic glare, he corrected, from Quinn. You'll never see me again. Casey whipped out his phone, motioned for an account number, and transferred the money on the spot. Leo stumbled out in a daze, sneering at Casey's foolish generosity. Casey flipped the menu, estimating that when the cops finally nabbed Leo he'd still be here, working on a plate of beef. By the time Quinn burst in, fuming, he'd polished off dinner and stationed himself outside, maybe sneaking one last cigarette before she arrived. Perfect timing. He was shopping with Rowan when Leo's text arrived. The message itself left her cold, but the fact every preview had been opened panicked her. The jealous devil Casey had probably gone straight to Leo. Rowan, knowing full well how vile Leo was, worried, your husband won't get hurt, will he? You should worry about Leo. He hailed a cab and tore across town to the barbecue house. Casey spotted her climbing out, ground his cigarette under his shoe, too smoked already. He noticed the crushed but, he couldn't quit, yet he never lit up in front of her. He loved barbecue but only ate it when she wasn't around. With her he could be uncomplicated, a sulky kid at times, but in front of outsiders, especially enemies, he was anything but gentle. He asked for $5 million. You paid? Yep. Extortion carries a 10-year sentence minimum. Casey rubbed his nose, looking wronged. He named the price. If he weren't greedy he wouldn't have walked into my sting operation. Yes, scumbag. Leo struck first. There's something I'm not sure I should tell you. Casey fidgeted, Quinn tensed. You're not cheating, are you? Do I look like I've got energy left for an affair? She exhaled, patting her chest. Spill. The recording was Leo's fake. I do own shares in that supplier, but I had no idea the steel was garbage. After his business collapsed and creditors closed in, he found out about my stake and cooked up the blackmail scheme. His jaw dropped. Then why on earth did you confess? I wanted to test how far your tolerance stretched, whether you'd stay if I turned out to be a rotten, scheming bastard. His grin carved happy lines across his face. So far the data says you'll forgive me as long as I don't cheat. He bounced up and smacked his head. You're tap dancing on the edge of a beating. And smoke less, mister. Casey chuckled sheepishly, then told her Westmont was soliciting designs for its future tallest tower. Submit a proposal. I want you chasing your dream again. If I win, poof, $300 million debt gone. The money still gets repaid, divorce is off the table. They smiled at each other, and in that instant he knew she loved Chase. No, she'd loved him for ages. Rising on tiptoe, she nipped his ear. I love you, my Chase. He froze, then laughed bright, open, the sound flooding her entire world with light. The end. Author, Chinjo Jiang. Thanks for listening to today's story. If you enjoyed, please like and share with friends. We look forward to your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to share your views, and don't forget to subscribe for more great stories. See you next time.